The massive space station hung in the darkness like a crystal jewel. Its silver walls stretched for kilometers in every direction. Inside the station, thousands of beings from across the galaxy moved through wide corridors. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated in the air or crawled on multiple limbs. This was the Galactic Council Station, the center of civilized space. Ambassador Li Qiang straightened his dark blue uniform as he walked toward the main council chamber. His black hair was neatly combed and his face showed no emotion despite the nervous feeling in his stomach. Behind him walked Park Min, a young woman carrying a small device for taking notes. She had been chosen as his aide because of her quick mind and steady nerves. The corridor they walked through was enormous. The ceiling rose high above their heads, designed to accommodate species much larger than humans. Strange lights cast rainbow colors across the smooth walls. The air tasted different here, filtered and cleaned to suit hundreds of different breathing systems. Other beings moved past them in the corridor. Most ignored the two humans completely. A few stopped to stare with curious eyes or sensor organs. Li Qiang had studied files on many galactic species during the long journey here, but seeing them in person was still shocking. One creature looked like a walking tree with glowing bark. Another resembled a floating jellyfish the size of a small car. They reached the entrance to the council chamber. Two guards stood at attention beside massive doors that could have swallowed a building. The guards were members of the hegemony wearing powered armor that made them look like metal giants. Their faces were hidden behind glowing visors. "Ambassador Li Qiang of Earth," Li said clearly. "Here for the integration assessment." One guard scanned him with a blue light beam. "You may enter. Keep your hands visible at all times. Do not make sudden movements." The doors opened with a deep rumbling sound. Li and Park stepped inside and both stopped in amazement. The council chamber was bigger than any building they had ever seen. Thousands of seats rose in curved rows that seemed to stretch to the horizon. Most of the seats were filled with beings from across the galaxy. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform surrounded by holographic displays. A tall, crystal-like being waited there. This was Speaker Vorthak of the Centauri Collective. His body was made of what looked like living diamond, and lights pulsed inside him when he moved. "The representatives of the species known as humans have arrived," Vorthak announced. His voice echoed through the chamber without any need for amplification. "Let the assessment begin." Li and Park walked down the long aisle toward the center platform. The silence was complete. Thousands of alien eyes watched their every step. Some beings whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or grinding metal or rushing water. They reached the platform and Li bowed politely. It was a simple human gesture, but it caused a ripple of reaction through the assembled aliens. Some made similar motions with their own bodies. Others pulled back as if frightened. "I am Ambassador Li Qiang," he said in a strong, clear voice. "I represent humanity and our homeworld of Earth. We come seeking friendship and peaceful cooperation with all civilized species." Vorthak's crystal body flashed with bright colors. "Before any species may join our council, they must be properly assessed. We must understand your nature, your capabilities, and your level of civilization." The speaker gestured with one arm made of living crystal. Above the platform, a massive holographic display flickered to life. The image showed a blue and green world spinning slowly in space. Earth looked beautiful and peaceful from this distance. "Your world has been classified," Vorthak continued. The display changed, showing red warning symbols surrounding Earth. "Class 12 Deathworld, the highest danger rating in our records." A sound went through the council chamber like a wave. Some beings gasped or made shocked noises in their own languages. Others moved restlessly in their seats. A few actually got up and left the chamber completely. The holographic display changed again. Now it showed creatures from Earth. A massive brown bear stood on its back legs, roaring at the sky. Its claws were longer than human fingers, and its teeth could crush bones. The aliens in the chamber made frightened sounds. The image changed to show a great white shark cutting through dark water. Its rows of razor-sharp teeth were clearly visible. Then came a pack of wolves running through snow. their yellow eyes glowing in the moonlight. Next was a lion, its golden mane flowing as it opened its mouth in a mighty roar. More images flashed by. Crocodiles with jaws that could snap a human in half. Poisonous snakes that could kill with a single bite. Giant spiders with legs longer than a human arm. Massive elephants that could trample anything in their path. These are the creatures that share your world, Vorthak said. Apex predators, venomous killers, beasts that hunt in coordinated packs. How can any intelligent species evolve alongside such monsters? Counselor Tethra rose from her seat. She was a member of the Verdani Federation, a peaceful species that looked like tall, thin humans with green skin and large eyes. Her voice was soft but carried clearly through the chamber. How do we know these beings are truly civilized? She asked. Perhaps they are simply the most successful predators on their death world. Perhaps they have learned to use tools, but retained the savage nature of their environment. More council members began to speak. A being that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles rapidly. My species encountered Deathworld survivors before. They were violent and unpredictable. They solved every problem with aggression. Another creature, covered in thick fur and standing on 4 legs, stamped its hooves nervously. The classification system exists for good reason. Class 12 worlds produce only monsters or prey. There is no middle ground. Li Kyung stood silently through all of this. His face remained calm, but Park noticed his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. She wanted to speak, to defend their species, but she knew this was not her moment. The debate continued for over an hour. Species after species expressed their doubts and fears. Some worried that humans would bring violence to the peaceful galaxy. Others questioned whether beings from such a dangerous world could ever truly understand cooperation and friendship. Finally, Speaker Vorthak raised one crystal arm for silence. The chamber became quiet again. The concerns raised are valid, he said. However, our laws require that every species requesting membership receive a fair assessment. The humans will undergo the standard integration tests. He turned to face Li Kyung directly. You and your people will be given quarters in Isolation Wing 7. You will be observed and tested to determine if you are suitable for membership in our galactic community. Li bowed again. We accept your conditions, Speaker Vorthak. We believe that understanding between species is possible, despite the fears we have heard today. Your quarters are located in the section typically reserved for dangerous specimens. Vorthak continued. This is for the safety of all beings aboard this station. You will remain there until the assessment is complete. As Li and Park were escorted from the chamber, the debates began again. Some species called for the humans to be sent away immediately. Others argued for giving them a chance. The voices mixed together into a chaos of sound that followed them, all the way to the corridor. The isolation wing was far from the main areas of the station. Their quarters were comfortable but clearly designed as a prison. The walls were thick and force fields hummed at every doorway. Guards stood watch outside at all times. That night, as Li and Park sat in their assigned rooms, they could hear the debates continuing through the station's communication systems. The galaxy was afraid of them, afraid of what humanity might bring from their dangerous world. Li stared out through the small window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there was Earth, with all its beautiful and terrible creatures. Soon the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity's relationship with their homeworld. The question was whether the aliens would understand that truth, or whether fear would win in the end. The assessment would begin tomorrow. Everything humanity hoped for depended on what happened next. 3 days after the first meeting, a new human ship docked at the Galactic Council station. The aliens watched nervously from observation windows as the vessel approached. It was smaller than most ships that visited the station, painted white with blue markings. The name Sejong was written on its side in both human letters and galactic standard. Dr. Kim Hana stepped off the ship first. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a simple style. Behind her came Dr. Choi, a young man carrying several cases of equipment, and Dr. Yoon Soo, a woman with weathered hands that showed years of working outdoors. The 3 scientists were escorted to the same isolation wing where Ambassador Li waited. Guards in heavy armor watched their every move. The aliens clearly expected these humans to be as dangerous as the creatures from their homeworld. The next morning, Dr. Kim was brought to Assessment Chamber 5. It was a large room with seats, rising on all sides like a theater. The assessment committee sat behind a protective barrier made of the strongest materials known to galactic science. At the center sat Praetor Quilth of the Hegemony, a being that looked like a giant beetle, covered in golden armor. Dr. Kim Hana, Praetor Quilth spoke through a translator device. You are here to demonstrate human civilization and scientific achievement. We expect to see your weapons technology and military capabilities. Dr. Kim smiled politely. I think there may be some misunderstanding. I am not a weapons expert. I study life and how different species interact with their environments. She activated a holographic projector that she had been allowed to bring. The first image showed a human city from space. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, but between them were patches of green. Parks and gardens were scattered throughout, the urban area like emeralds on gray cloth. This is Seoul, one of our largest cities, Dr. Kim explained. 25 million humans live there, but as you can see, we have kept spaces for nature within our urban areas. The committee members looked confused. They had expected to see fortified bunkers and defensive walls. Instead, they saw a city that seemed to welcome the natural world rather than shut it out. The next image showed humans walking through a forest. Trees towered above them, and thick undergrowth surrounded the narrow path. The committee knew from their files that Earth's forests contained many dangerous predators. These people are hiking for recreation, Dr. Kim continued. They go into the wilderness by choice, not necessity. They find peace and enjoyment in places where dangerous animals live. More images followed. Humans swimming in the ocean while large sharks swam nearby. Families camping in areas where bears and wolves roamed freely. Children playing in fields where venomous snakes might hide in the tall grass. Praetor Quilth's golden armor rattled as he shifted nervously. These humans appear to have no survival instincts. Do they not understand the dangers around them? They understand perfectly, Dr. Kim replied. But they have learned to live with those dangers rather than hide from them. Would you like to see how? Before anyone could answer, she spoke into a small communication device. Please bring Baekdu to the chamber. The committee members froze. Several reached for emergency buttons that would seal the chamber. Guards raised their weapons and aimed them at the chamber door. The door opened, and Dr. Choi Wan entered, leading something that made every alien in the room pull back in terror. It was a wolf, gray and white with intelligent yellow eyes. To the galactic species, this creature represented everything they feared about Earth. It was a pack hunter with powerful jaws, sharp teeth, and killing instincts refined over millions of years. But the wolf walked calmly beside Dr. Choi, a simple rope around its neck. It showed no signs of aggression or hunting behavior. When they reached the center of the chamber, the wolf sat down and looked around with what seemed like curiosity rather than hunger. This is Baekdu, Dr. Kim said calmly. He is what we call a domesticated wolf. His ancestors were the same creatures you see in our wilderness, but over thousands of years, humans have formed a partnership with them. Counselor Tethra spoke from behind the barrier, her voice shaking with fear. Partnership? That creature is a predator. It kills to survive. Dr. Kim reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of dried meat. She held it out to Baekdu, who took it gently from her fingers and ate it without aggression. Then she gestured with her hand and the wolf lay down on the floor. Baekdu does not need to hunt, she explained. We provide for his needs, and in return, he provides companionship and loyalty. This is what we call domestication. We have not made him less than what he was. We have given him a different way to live. Dr. Choi demonstrated more commands. Baekdu stood up, walked in a circle, and even rolled over on his back, showing his vulnerable belly to the humans. This gesture of complete trust made several committee members gasp in disbelief. How is this possible? Asked another committee member, a being that resembled a large bird covered in blue feathers. Our scientists have studied predator behavior across hundreds of worlds. They do not form bonds with other species. Dr. Kim smiled. That is because most species see predators as enemies to be fought or avoided. Humans saw them as potential partners. We offered food, shelter, and protection in exchange for cooperation. Over many generations, both species changed together. She showed more images on the holographic display. Dogs of many different sizes and shapes, all descended from wolves like Bekdu. Some were large and powerful, bred to guard human settlements. Others were small and gentle, companions for children and elderly humans. We call this process selective breeding, Dr. Choi explained. We choose the wolves that showed the most cooperation and allowed them to have offspring. Over time, this created animals that were naturally inclined to work with humans rather than against them. The committee sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Finally, Praetor Quilth spoke again. You are saying that humans have somehow tamed apex predators? Not tamed, Dr. Kim corrected. That suggests forcing them to obey against their nature. We formed partnerships that benefited both species. The wolves gained reliable food and protection from larger predators. Humans gained loyal companions that helped with hunting and protection. Dr. Yoon Soo stepped forward. This is not unique to land animals. Humans have formed relationships with creatures from every environment on Earth. Ocean dwellers, flying species, even some of the insects you saw in yesterday's presentation. She activated another section of the holographic display. Images showed humans working alongside dolphins in the ocean, using birds to carry messages across great distances, and even keeping bees that produced food in exchange for care and protection. The demonstration was interrupted when an alarm began sounding throughout the chamber. Several committee members had activated emergency protocols, demanding that the predator be removed from the station immediately. Security forces entered the chamber with weapons drawn. They wore full protective suits and moved like they were approaching a dangerous chemical spill rather than a calm animal lying on the floor. Dr. Kim sighed sadly. Bekdu, come, she said simply. The wolf stood up and walked to her side, completely, ignoring the armed guards surrounding them. We will return to our quarters. As they were escorted out, she could hear the committee members arguing loudly behind them. Some demanded that all humans be sent away immediately. Others insisted on continuing the assessment to understand what they had witnessed. That evening, back in the isolation wing, Dr. Kim sat with Ambassador Lee and reported on the day's events. Through the thick walls, they could hear heated debates echoing throughout the station. They are afraid, Ambassador Lee observed. They cannot understand how we could live alongside the creatures they consider monsters. Dr. Kim nodded. Fear makes it hard to see clearly. They think we are either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. They have not considered that we might simply understand something they do not. Outside their window, the stars continued their ancient dance across the galaxy. Somewhere among them were worlds where other species lived in fear of the dangerous creatures that shared their planets. Perhaps if the assessment continued, humans could teach them a different way. But first, they had to convince the Galactic Council that humans were not the monsters they appeared to be. The real test was just beginning. Captain Jiang Su stood at attention as the inspection team boarded his ship. The aliens moved carefully through the airlock, wearing heavy protective suits and carrying scanning equipment. Leading them was Commander Vex Thule of the Hegemony Security Force, a being whose natural armor plating made him look like a walking tank. Captain Jiang Su, Commander Vex Thule spoke through his suit's translator. By order of the Galactic Council, we are authorized to conduct a full inspection of your vessel. You will provide access to all areas and answer all questions truthfully. Captain Jiang nodded respectfully. He was a tall man with silver-streaked hair and calm eyes that had seen many years of space travel. You are welcome aboard the Sejong, Commander. My crew will assist you in any way possible. The inspection team consisted of 12 beings from different species, all armed and ready for danger. They expected to find a military vessel designed for survival on a Deathworld. Instead, as they moved through the ship's corridors, they found something completely unexpected. The walls were lined with growing plants. Green vines climbed up metal surfaces and small trees grew in carefully designed alcoves. The air smelled fresh and alive, not like the sterile atmosphere of most spaceships. "What is the purpose of this vegetation?" asked Dr. Zeftar, a scientist, whose species resembled walking trees. His voice carried surprise and confusion. Engineer Namji stepped forward to answer. She was a young woman with dirt under her fingernails and a tool belt around her waist. "These are our life support gardens. The plants clean our air and provide fresh food during long journeys." Commander Vexthul stopped in front of a large vine that produced bright red fruits. According to his scanner, the plant contained chemical compounds that would be toxic to most galactic species. "You consume these poison producers?" Namji smiled and picked one of the fruits. She took a bite, and the alien stepped back in alarm. "We call these tomatoes. They are perfectly safe for humans and provide important nutrients." The inspection team moved deeper into the ship, growing more confused with each new discovery. In the crew quarters, they found personal gardens where individual humans grew their own plants. Some were flowers that served no apparent purpose except beauty. Others were herbs that the humans used to flavor their food. The real shock came when they entered the ship's main living area. A small furry creature with 4 legs and a long tail walked across the floor. It had large eyes, pointed ears, and displayed all the characteristics of a perfect ambush predator. The aliens immediately raised their weapons, but Captain Zhang held up his hand. "Please do not harm Nabi. She is our ship's cat." "Cat?" "Commander." Vexthul's scanner showed him detailed biological information about the creature. Sharp claws for climbing and fighting. Excellent night vision for hunting in darkness. Lightning-fast reflexes for catching prey. Powerful jaw muscles for delivering killing bites. "This is an apex predator," he stated. "It belongs in maximum security containment." At that moment, Dr. Yunsu entered the room. She saw Nabi and made soft calling sounds. The cat walked over to her and rubbed against her legs, making a strange rumbling noise that seemed to indicate contentment. "Nabi helps us with pest control," Dr. Yun explained, picking up the cat and holding it in her arms. "She catches any small creatures that might damage our equipment or food supplies. She also provides companionship during long journeys between stars." The inspection team watched in amazement as the deadly predator allowed itself to be held and petted like a harmless toy. Some of the aliens had to sit down to avoid falling over from shock. "How many more of these creatures do you have aboard this vessel?" Commander Vexthul demanded. "Just Nabi," Captain Zhang replied. "Though we do have other Earth life forms. Would you like to see our aquatic section?" Before anyone could object, he led them to another part of the ship. Here, large, transparent containers held water from Earth's oceans. Inside the tanks, various sea creatures swam in carefully maintained environments. The aliens stared at creatures they recognized as monsters from the deepest nightmares. Sharks with rows of razor teeth circled in one tank. In another, electric eels that could stun large prey moved like living lightning. Octopi that could change color and shape hid among artificial coral reefs. "These are our emergency food supplies," Dr. Yun explained casually. "We also study them to better understand Earth's marine ecosystems." "Food supplies?" Dr. Zeftar's branches rustled with disbelief. "You consume apex predators from the ocean depths?" Captain Zhang nodded. "Sharks are considered a delicacy in some human cultures. The electric eels are used in certain traditional medicines. The octopi are quite intelligent and make interesting subjects for behavioral studies." The inspection continued to the ship's agricultural bay, where farmer Huang Do tended to rows of growing plants. The space was large and filled with green growing things under artificial sunlight. The air here was thick and humid like a jungle. Huang Do was an elderly man with weathered hands and a peaceful expression. He moved among the plants like they were old friends, checking their growth and adjusting their care systems. "These are our food crops," he explained to the nervous aliens. "Rice, vegetables, fruits, and spices from Earth. Nothing here can survive without careful attention and the right growing conditions." Commander Vexthul scanned the plants with his equipment. Nearly every species showed chemical compounds that his database classified as toxins, irritants, or defensive mechanisms. "This plant produces capsaicin," he said, pointing to a small pepper plant. That is a chemical weapon used by some species for crowd control. Huangdo laughed gently. We call those peppers. They make our food taste better. Some humans like them very spicy. He picked one of the small peppers and bit into it. His eyes watered slightly, but he showed no other signs of distress. The aliens backed away as if he had just swallowed poison. The inspection team spent 6 hours going through every section of the ship. They found Earth creatures in every area. Birds that the humans had trained to carry messages, worms that helped process organic waste, even bacteria that the humans used to make food like cheese and fermented drinks. Each discovery made the aliens more confused and frightened. These humans had not just survived their death world. They had brought it with them into space. They lived surrounded by creatures that should have been their enemies. Finally, the inspection team gathered in the ship's meeting room to discuss their findings. Captain Zhang and his crew waited patiently while the aliens argued in several different languages. Commander Vexthul eventually spoke for the group. Captain, we do not understand what we have seen here. Your species appears to have formed impossible relationships with dangerous life forms. How do you explain this? Captain Zhang considered his words carefully. Commander, I think the problem is in how you define dangerous. To us, these creatures are not enemies or threats. They are partners. We provide for their needs, and they provide for ours. But the biological data does not support this, Dr. Zeftar protested. These creatures possess all the physical capabilities needed to harm you. Why do they not use those capabilities? Because they do not need to, Captain Zhang replied. A well-fed predator that has a safe home does not hunt unless it must. A plant that receives proper care does not need to produce as many toxins to defend itself. When survival is not in question, cooperation becomes possible. Engineer Namji added, We have learned that every creature, no matter how dangerous it seems, has needs and desires beyond simple survival. If you can meet those needs, you can build a relationship. The inspection team left the ship more confused than when they had arrived. Their report to the Galactic Council was unlike any they had ever filed. The humans were not what anyone had expected. That night, debates raged throughout the station. Some species demanded that the humans be sent away immediately, arguing that any beings who could form alliances with such dangerous creatures must be incredibly dangerous themselves. Others wondered if the humans might possess knowledge that could help them deal with the dangerous creatures on their own worlds. Many planets in the galaxy had been abandoned because they were too dangerous for colonization. Ambassador Li received reports of the discussions from contacts he had made among the more friendly species. The galaxy was divided. Some saw humans as a potential threat. Others saw them as a potential solution to problems they had faced for thousands of years. The next phase of the assessment would determine which view would win. The humans had shown that they could live with dangerous creatures. Now they would have to prove that this ability could be trusted by the galaxy at large. Deep in the ship's agricultural bay, Farmer Huang Do continued to tend his plants under the artificial stars. Around him, Earth's life forms continued their ancient cycles of growth and renewal, just as they had done on their home planet for millions of years. The only difference was that now they grew among the stars, carried by a species that had learned the secret of turning enemies into friends. The biodome was the largest enclosed space on the Galactic Council station. It stretched for kilometers in all directions, designed to simulate natural environments from hundreds of different worlds. Today, it had been converted into a demonstration arena, with observation platforms rising on all sides like the seats of a massive stadium. Dr. Xin Young stood alone at the center of the dome, surrounded by force fields and security measures. She was a small woman with gentle hands and patient eyes, but the thousands of alien observers watching her looked terrified. They sat behind reinforced barriers, some wearing protective suits despite the multiple layers of shielding between them and the demonstration area. Speaker Vorthak's crystal body flashed with nervous energy as he addressed the assembly. The humans claim that their relationship with dangerous creatures is based on partnership rather than dominance. Today, Dr. Xin Young will demonstrate what they call domestication. High above the arena, holographic displays activated, The first images showed the wild ancestors of Earth's domestic animals. A massive aurochs, the ancestor of cattle, charged across an ancient grassland. Its horns were longer than a human arm, and its muscles could drive those horns through solid wood. This creature weighed over 1,000 kilograms, Dr. Shin explained through the arena's communication system. It was aggressive, territorial, and considered one of the most dangerous animals in ancient Europe. Hunting one was a test of courage for human warriors. The image changed to show a modern Holstein cow standing peacefully in a green field. The contrast was startling. Where the aurochs had been a creature of rage and violence, the cow looked calm and gentle. Through thousands of years of selective breeding, humans transformed this dangerous beast into a partner. The cow provides milk, meat, and leather. In return, humans provide food, shelter, and protection from predators. The alien observers made nervous sounds as more examples appeared on the displays. Wild boars with razor-sharp tusks became pink domestic pigs that wallowed contentedly in mud. Fierce jungle fowl with sharp spurs and aggressive territoriality became chickens that laid eggs for human consumption. Counselor Tethra spoke from behind her protective barrier, her green skin pale with worry. These transformations took thousands of years according to your timeline. Surely this proves that such relationships cannot be established quickly. Dr. Shin smiled. That is true for complete domestication, but the basic principles can work much faster. The foundation of all these relationships is understanding what the creature needs and finding ways to meet those needs without conflict. She gestured to her assistants, who brought several carriers into the arena. The first contained what the aliens recognized as a pack predator similar to the wolf they had seen before, but this one was smaller, with floppy ears and a constantly wagging tail. "This is Gamja," Dr. Shin announced as she opened the carrier. A golden retriever bounded out, immediately running to her side and sitting when she raised her hand. His breed was developed to help humans hunt waterfowl, but today most dogs of his type are kept purely as companions. The alien observers pressed back in their seats as the predator moved freely around the arena. Several council security guards raised their weapons, but Speaker Vorthak ordered them to wait. Dr. Shin demonstrated basic commands. Gamja sat, lay down, and rolled over on command. When she threw a ball across the arena, he chased it eagerly and brought it back to her, dropping it at her feet and waiting for her to throw it again. "Play behavior," she explained. "In the wild, young predators play to learn hunting skills. We have redirected that instinct into games that strengthen the bond between human and dog while providing physical exercise." The demonstration continued, with more domestic animals. Goats that had descended from sure-footed mountain climbers now provided milk and cleared unwanted vegetation. Sheep that had once been wild mountain dwellers now grew wool for human clothing. Each species was introduced, with images of their dangerous wild ancestors, then presented in their domesticated form. The aliens watched in growing amazement as creatures they considered deadly threats behaved with perfect gentleness around the humans. The real surprise came when a group of human children entered the arena. They ranged in age from about 5 to 12 years old, and they showed no fear at all around the animals. The children petted Gamja, fed treats to the goats, and even helped Dr. Shin demonstrate how the different species had been trained. "How is this possible?" asked Dr. Zeftar, his tree-like branches trembling. "Those are your offspring. How can you allow them near such dangerous creatures?" 8-year-old Yuki, the daughter of one of the human diplomats, stepped forward to answer. "They are not dangerous. Gamja has been my friend since I was very little. He protects me and plays with me. He would never hurt anyone." To demonstrate, she lay down on the ground next to the large dog. Gamja immediately moved to lie beside her, resting his head on her small chest. The sight of the apex predator being so gentle with the tiny human child made several aliens in the observation area faint from shock. Agricultural specialist Li Ho brought out the final part of the demonstration. She had prepared samples of earth plants that the humans used for food, medicine, and other purposes. Many of these plants showed up as toxic or dangerous in galactic databases. "This is wheat," she said, holding up stalks of grain. The wild ancestor was barely edible and difficult to harvest. Through selective breeding, humans developed varieties that produce large amounts of nutritious grain. She showed them corn, which had been developed from a wild grass that produced tiny hard seeds, potatoes, which came from a plant that was originally poisonous, apples, which had been small bitter fruits before human intervention. We do not just take what nature gives us, Liho explained. We work with natural processes to create better outcomes for both humans and the other species involved. The Kao demonstration reached its climax when Dr. Shin brought out a creature that made even the human children step back. It was a large snake, nearly 3 meters long, with beautiful patterns on its scales. The alien observers screamed and several emergency alarms began sounding throughout the biodome. "This is a Burmese python," Dr. Shin said calmly as the snake coiled around her arm. "In the wild, pythons this size can eat animals as large as deer. They are powerful constrictors that kill their prey by squeezing." Security forces moved toward the arena, but Dr. Shin raised her free hand to stop them. "Sunny here has been raised in captivity since she was hatched. She has never had to hunt for food, so she has no hunting instincts toward humans. She recognizes me as her caretaker, not as prey." The snake moved slowly across her shoulders, its tongue flicking out to taste the air. Dr. Shin remained perfectly calm, even reaching up to gently stroke the reptile's head. The key to any relationship with a powerful creature is understanding its nature and working with it rather than against it. Sunny needs warmth, security, and regular feeding. I provide those things, and in return she trusts me completely. The demonstration ended with all the animals gathered around the human children and adults. Gamja lay peacefully next to the sheep. The goats munched on specially prepared treats. Even the python coiled contentedly in a patch of artificial sunlight, showing no signs of aggression. Dr. Shin addressed the silent audience one final time. "Every creature you have seen today descended from wild animals that could be dangerous under the right circumstances. But when their basic needs are met and they are treated with understanding and respect, they become partners instead of threats." Observers sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Finally, Speaker Vorthak's crystal body flashed with rapid light patterns. "Dr. Shin-young, what you have shown us challenges everything we understand about interspecies relationships." "Perhaps," she replied, "it is time to learn new ways of understanding." As the humans and their animal companions were escorted back to their quarters, the debates began immediately. Some species called for the demonstrations to stop, arguing that the humans were too dangerous to be allowed to continue. Others demanded to know more about these domestication techniques. Late that night, Ambassador Lee received a private communication from Counselor Tethra. "Ambassador, some of us have worlds that were abandoned because of dangerous wildlife. If your people can truly form partnerships with such creatures, you might be able to help us reclaim those lost colonies." Lee smiled as he looked out at the stars. Perhaps the galaxy was finally beginning to understand that humans had something valuable to offer, beyond their ability to survive on dangerous worlds. The assessment was far from over, but for the first time since arriving at the station, Lee felt hope that humanity might find its place among the stars. War Commander Brixtall stood before the Galactic Council like a monument to military power. His species, the Corvin Alliance, were built for war. Thick armor plating covered his body from head to toe, and his forearms each ended in claws that could tear through metal. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "The humans deceive us," he declared to the assembled council. "They show us trained creatures and claim partnership, but this proves nothing. Any species can break the will of weaker beings through force and fear. We demand proof that these alleged partnerships are genuine." Ambassador Lee stood to respond, but Brixtall raised one massive clawed hand to silence him. "The Corvin Alliance challenges the humans to 3 tests. If they fail even one, they must be classified as a deception species and banned from galactic civilization." Speaker Vorthak's crystal body dimmed with worry. "War Commander, the humans have already demonstrated remarkable abilities. Perhaps additional challenges are unnecessary." "Demonstrations mean nothing," Brixtall snarled. Any species can train performing animals for a show. We must test their abilities under real conditions, with real dangers. The war commander activated a holographic display that showed 3 different scenarios. The first was a hostile environment chamber filled with deadly obstacles and toxic atmosphere. The second showed a pack of Skrilla, wolf-like predators from the Vega system that were considered among the most dangerous creatures in known space. The third image was classified, showing only the words, Maximum Security Containment, Theta, Draconis Stalker. 3 tests, Brixtel announced. Survival in conditions that have killed representatives of 12 different species. Defense against predators that no galactic military has ever successfully contained. And finally, communication with a creature so dangerous that it has never been approached without heavy weapons and battle armor. The council chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Several species immediately began filing protests, claiming the tests were impossible and designed to kill the human subjects. Others argued that such extreme measures were justified given the potential danger humans might represent. Dr. Park Tay stepped forward before Ambassador Lee could speak. She was a wilderness survival expert with sun-weathered skin and the lean build of someone who spent most of her time outdoors. I accept the first challenge, she said calmly. Brixtal's 4 eyes focused on her with interest. You understand that 12 beings have died in that environment? Their species had advanced technology and thousands of years of spacefaring experience. I understand, Dr. Park replied. But they did not have Earth experience. Every environment has patterns and rules. If you know how to read them, you can survive. The first test was scheduled for the following day. Dr. Park was given basic survival equipment, a knife, a water purification tablet, and emergency medical supplies. The test environment was a sealed biodome that simulated conditions from 3 different hostile worlds combined into one nightmare scenario. The atmosphere contained trace amounts of sulfur compounds that burned the lungs of most species. The temperature shifted randomly between freezing cold and desert heat. Carnivorous plants lined the pathways, and the ground was covered with sharp crystal formations that could cut through most protective suits. Thousands of aliens watched through protected observation windows as Dr. Park entered the dome. Many placed bets on how quickly she would require emergency rescue. The record for survival in this environment was 4 hours and 23 minutes. Dr. Park began by standing perfectly still for 10 minutes, simply observing. She watched how the air moved, noting the patterns of temperature change. She studied the carnivorous plants to understand their feeding cycles. She examined the crystal formations to find safe paths between them. She is doing nothing, Brixtal growled. This proves humans are not adaptable under pressure. But those who knew humans better recognized what Dr. Park was doing. She was reading the environment like a book, understanding its rhythms and finding its weaknesses. When she finally began to move, it was with the confidence of someone who belonged in the wilderness. She found sources of clean water by following the patterns of mineral deposits. She identified edible fungi growing in the shadows of the carnivorous plants. She even discovered that one species of crystal formation generated heat, providing warm shelter during the cold cycles. By the end of the first day, she had built a comfortable shelter and established a reliable source of food and water. By the third day, she had mapped safe routes throughout the entire dome. After a week, the test administrators had to end the challenge because Dr. Park showed no signs of distress or need for rescue. Impossible, Brixtal muttered as Dr. Park emerged from the dome looking healthier than when she had entered. No species adapts that quickly to unknown environments. Security Officer Ko Yan volunteered for the second challenge. She was a former police officer with experience handling dangerous situations, but even she looked nervous as the challenge was explained. The Skrilla were pack predators that hunted in coordinated groups of 8 to 12 individuals. Each one was the size of a large wolf, with enhanced senses and intelligence that made them nearly unstoppable once they identified prey. They had broken out of containment facilities on 7 different occasions, always killing multiple guards in the process. The test would take place in a large arena surrounded by energy barriers. Ko Yan would be trapped inside with a pack of 6 Skrilla for 1 hour. Previous subjects had been armed with advanced weapons and battle armor. Ko-yan requested no weapons and no armor except for her standard clothing. "This is suicide, counselor," Tethra protested. "Those creatures have killed trained warriors wearing power armor." Ko-yan smiled grimly. "Warriors fight predators. I am going to try something different." When the test began, the 6 Skrilla were released into the arena. They immediately spread out in a hunting formation, surrounding Ko-yan with the precision of a military unit. Their eyes glowed with predatory intelligence as they prepared to close in for the kill. But Ko-yan did not run or fight. Instead, she sat down on the ground and made herself as small as possible. She avoided direct eye contact with the pack leader and kept her movements slow and non-threatening. The Skrilla were confused. Their prey was not behaving like prey. Ko-yan had studied pack behavior extensively during her police training, and she knew that most predators only attacked when they felt threatened or when they identified something as food. She used body, language, and positioning techniques learned from working with earthwolves. She showed submission to the pack leader without showing fear or weakness. She demonstrated that she was not a threat to their territory or their pack structure. Slowly, over the course of 30 minutes, the Skrilla began to relax their hunting formation. They still watched her carefully, but they no longer saw her as immediate prey. When one of the younger pack members approached her cautiously, Ko-yan remained perfectly still until it lost interest and wandered away. By the end of the hour, the Skrilla were lying around the arena like a group of large dogs, occasionally glancing at Ko-yan but showing no aggressive behavior. She had achieved something that galactic military experts had declared impossible: peaceful coexistence with apex pack predators. "How?" Brixtal demanded as Ko-yan was safely extracted from the arena. "Those creatures are programmed by evolution to kill anything that enters their territory." "They are programmed to kill threats and prey," Ko-yan corrected. "I made sure to be neither. Every predator species follows similar behavioral patterns. If you understand those patterns, you can avoid triggering their attack responses." The success of the first 2 challenges had shaken the confidence of those who opposed human integration into galactic society. But the 3rd challenge was considered impossible by every species in the galaxy. The Theta Draconis stalker was kept in the most secure containment facility ever built. The creature was 3 meters tall and covered in natural armor that could deflect energy weapons. It had 6 limbs that ended in claws capable of cutting through starship hulls, and sensory organs that could detect the slightest movement from hundreds of meters away. More importantly, it had never shown any behavior except pure aggression toward every living thing it encountered. 17 researchers had died trying to study these creatures over the past century. The current specimen had been in isolation for 20 years, growing more hostile with each passing day. Dr. Song-hye, an animal psychologist, stood outside the containment facility and studied the security protocols. The chamber was surrounded by multiple energy barriers, automated defense systems, and enough firepower to destroy a small spacecraft. "Dr. Song," War Commander Brixtal said, his voice carrying a note of satisfaction, "this creature has killed every being that has ever approached it. Even our most advanced battle mechs cannot survive direct contact for more than minutes. You have 1 hour to establish what you call communication." Dr. Song nodded calmly. "I understand the risks, but I would like to study the creature's behavioral records first. Every species has patterns, even the most aggressive ones." She spent 3 days reviewing video recordings of the stalker's previous encounters. Most showed brief moments of violence followed by emergency evacuations, but Dr. Song noticed details that the military analysts had missed. The creature's aggression always increased when it was approached with weapons or loud noises. Its attacks were more violent when the lights were bright. Its movements suggested pain responses that had nothing to do with external threats. "I believe this creature is not naturally aggressive," she announced to the assessment committee. "I think it is responding to chronic pain and environmental stress." Brixtal's armor plates rattled with laughter. "Dr. Song, that creature is a perfect killing machine. Pain and stress are irrelevant to its nature." "We will see," Dr. Song replied quietly. On the day of the final test, she entered the containment facility wearing simple clothing and carrying only a medical scanner and some basic veterinary supplies. The observation galleries were packed with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. The stalker crouched in the center of its chamber, a massive form of muscle and natural armor. When the barriers lowered to admit Dr. Song, it immediately focused its multiple sensory organs on her. A low growling sound filled the chamber, and the creature's claws extended in preparation for attack. Dr. Song stopped just inside the entrance and sat down on the floor. She made no sudden movements and avoided direct eye contact, just as Ko Yan had done with the Skrilla. But this time, the situation was far more dangerous. The stalker began to circle her, moving with the fluid grace of a perfect predator. Its claws scraped against the metal floor, sending sparks into the air. Every observer expected to witness Dr. Song's death within moments. But Dr. Song had noticed something in the recordings that no one else had seen. The creature favored its left rear limb, always keeping weight off it when possible. It flinched when bright lights hit its sensory organs. Its aggressive displays increased when it was hungry, or when the chamber temperature was too cold. She began to speak in a low, calm voice. Not words, but sounds, the kind of gentle noises that every human used to comfort frightened animals. The stalker paused in its circling, confused by this unexpected behavior. Over the next hour, Dr. Song gradually identified the sources of the creature's distress. The lights in the chamber were too bright for its sensitive vision. The temperature was uncomfortably cold for a creature that had evolved on a warm world. Most importantly, it was suffering from an untreated injury to its rear leg that had been causing chronic pain for years. Working slowly and carefully, she used her medical scanner to examine the injury from a distance. The stalker growled and showed its claws, but it did not attack. Something in Dr. Song's behavior told it that she was not a threat. When she finally approached close enough to treat the injured limb, every observer held their breath. The stalker could have killed her, instantly. Instead, it allowed her to examine the old wound and apply a healing gel that immediately began to reduce the inflammation. The change in the creature's behavior was immediate and dramatic. The constant aggressive posturing stopped. The low growling faded to silence. For the first time in 20 years, the Theta Draconis stalker relaxed. By the end of the hour, Dr. Song was sitting next to the massive predator, running her hands along its armored hide while it made soft rumbling sounds of contentment. The sight was so unprecedented that several observers fainted from shock. "Impossible," War Commander Brixtel whispered. "That creature is incapable of peaceful behavior." Dr. Song looked up at the observation gallery. "Every creature is capable of peace when its needs are met and its pain is healed. This stalker was not evil or naturally aggressive. It was hurt, frightened, and alone." When it came time to return the stalker to containment, Dr. Song simply stood up and walked toward the exit. The creature followed her calmly, showing none of the resistance that had required heavy sedation in the past. The 3 challenges had been completed successfully. War Commander Brixtel stood in stunned silence as the impossible became reality. The humans had not just survived the tests, they had revolutionized the galaxy's understanding of what was possible between species. That night, as debates raged throughout the station, Dr. Song sat in her quarters and thought about the lonely creature in the containment facility. Tomorrow she would return to work with it again, helping it heal from years of isolation and pain. The final assessment was complete, but for Dr. Song the real work was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the challenges, and the Galactic Council station buzzed with unprecedented activity. Representatives from dozens of species had requested meetings with the human delegation. Some came seeking help with dangerous creatures on their own worlds. Others wanted to learn the techniques that had made the impossible challenges look simple. Dr. Song Hai had become the most requested speaker in the station's history. Every day, she received invitations to address different species councils, explain her methods, or consult on problems that had plagued civilizations for centuries. But this morning, she was exactly where she wanted to be, sitting in the modified containment facility with the Theta Draconis stalker that everyone now called Titan. The massive creature lay beside her like an enormous cat, its armored head resting on her lap, While she gently cleaned its sensory organs, the wound on its leg had healed completely, and its overall health had improved dramatically since their first meeting. "Good morning, Titan," she said softly, running her hands along the creature's neck. Titan made the deep rumbling sound that she had learned meant contentment and safety. Ambassador Lee entered the facility, still amazed by the sight that had become routine over the past weeks. "Dr. Song, Speaker Vorthak has requested your presence at the final council session. They are ready to announce their decision about humanity's membership." Dr. Song nodded, but did not immediately stand up. "Titan, I have to go to another meeting. Will you be all right until I return?" The massive predator lifted its head and looked at her with intelligent eyes. It made a soft chirping sound that she had learned meant understanding and acceptance. Then it settled back down to rest, completely relaxed despite being surrounded by the same containment systems that had once been necessary to control it. The council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Every seat was filled, and additional observers crowded into temporary viewing areas. The debates had continued for months, but today would bring the final decision about humanity's place in galactic civilization. Speaker Vorthak stood at the center of the chamber, his crystal body glowing. With formal authority, the assessment of the human species is complete. We have observed their capabilities, tested their claims, and evaluated their potential contribution to our galactic community. He gestured toward the human delegation, where Ambassador Lee sat, with the team of scientists and specialists who had made the demonstrations possible. The evidence presented challenges our fundamental understanding of interspecies relationships. The speaker activated a holographic display showing footage from the past months. Dr. Park building shelter in the impossible environment. Ko Yan sitting peacefully among the Skrilla pack. Dr. Song healing the wounded stalker with nothing but patience and medical knowledge. These humans have demonstrated abilities that we previously considered impossible. Vorthak continued. They have shown that partnership can exist where we saw only conflict. They have proven that understanding can overcome fear. Counselor Tethra rose from her seat. Over the months, she had become one of humanity's strongest supporters. Speaker Vorthak, my species formally requests that humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Federation. Furthermore, we propose the creation of a new institution dedicated to applying human knowledge to help other species. War Commander Brixtal stood up, his armor plates gleaming under the chamber lights. For a moment, tension filled the air as everyone remembered his initial opposition to the humans. But when he spoke, his voice carried respect rather than hostility. The Corvin Alliance withdraws all objections to human membership, he announced. These beings have proven their worth, beyond any doubt. We formally request their assistance in dealing with the apex predators of Corvin Prime, creatures that have prevented colonization of our homeworld's southern continent for over 1,000 years. Similar requests came from dozens of other species. The Verdani Federation had 3 abandoned colonies that could be reclaimed if the dangerous wildlife could be pacified. The Centauri Collective needed help with swarm creatures that attacked their mining operations. Even the peaceful hegemony admitted to having problems with aggressive plant life on several agricultural worlds. Speaker Vorthak raised his arms for silence. By unanimous vote of all member species, humanity is granted full membership in the Galactic Federation. Furthermore, we established the Interspecies Cooperation Institute with Dr. Song Hae as its first director. The chamber erupted in celebration. Species that had once feared humanity now competed to offer partnerships and exchange programs. The humans were no longer seen as dangerous survivors from a Deathworld, but as teachers who could help the galaxy learn new ways of living. Dr. Song returned to the modified containment facility to find Titan waiting for her. The massive creature immediately approached her, making the happy chirping sounds that meant he had missed her presence. "We did it, Titan," she said, wrapping her arms around his enormous head. "The galaxy is ready to learn that every creature can be a friend if you understand their needs." Over the following weeks, the station was transformed. New research facilities were constructed to study interspecies communication. Training programs were established to teach other species the techniques that humans had developed over thousands of years. Dr. Kim Hana, established breeding programs for Earth animals that could help with specific problems on other worlds, bees for pollination on agricultural planets, dogs for companionship and assistance for isolated colonists, cats for pest control on space stations and mining facilities. Captain Jiangsu's ship became the template for a new class of vessels designed for interspecies cooperation missions. Each ship would carry a complete ecosystem, allowing humans to bring their partner species to worlds that needed their help. Engineer Nam Ji worked with alien scientists to develop new hydroponic systems that could support Earth plants in any environment. Soon, human gardens would be growing on worlds throughout the galaxy, providing both food and examples of successful human-plant partnerships. The real breakthrough came when Dr. Song began working with young beings from other species. Children, she discovered, were naturally better at forming bonds with creatures their elders considered dangerous. A young Verdani girl successfully befriended a creature that had terrorized her colony for years. A hegemony child learned to communicate with aggressive crystal formations that had been destroying mining equipment. Children see possibilities where adults see only problems, Dr. Song explained to a gathering of galactic educators. They have not yet learned to be afraid of things that are different from themselves. The Interspecies Cooperation Institute became the most successful program in galactic history. Within 2 years, over 100 worlds had been reclaimed or improved through human assistance. Species that had lived in fear of their local wildlife learned to work alongside creatures they had once considered enemies. The final ceremony took place in the station's central garden, a space that had been redesigned to accommodate life forms from dozens of different worlds. Human children played with young aliens while Earth animals mingled peacefully with creatures from across the galaxy. Ambassador Lee stood with Speaker Vorthak, watching a human child and a young Corvin work together to train a stalker pup that had been bred in captivity. The sight would have been unthinkable just 2 years earlier, but now it represented the future of galactic civilization. Ambassador Lee, Vorthak said, his crystal body glowing with warm light. Humanity has given the galaxy something we never knew we needed. You have taught us that partnership is possible with any creature, no matter how dangerous it may seem. Lee smiled as he watched more children arrive for the daily training sessions. Representatives from over 50 species brought their young ones to learn from human experts and Earth animals. Speaker Vorthak, I think we have learned as much from you as you have from us. The galaxy is full of wonders that we never imagined. Together we can explore them all. In the modified containment facility, Titan lay peacefully in a patch of artificial sunlight, surrounded by young beings from a dozen different species. They petted his armored hide and listened to his contented rumbling, learning that the most fearsome predator in known space was also capable of gentleness and friendship. Dr. Song watched from the observation window, making notes for her next research project. There were reports of even more dangerous creatures on the frontier worlds, beings that no species had ever successfully approached. But she was no longer worried about the challenges ahead. Every creature had needs. Every being wanted safety and companionship. Every species could learn to work together if someone took the time to understand their nature and find common ground. The humans had survived their death world by learning to turn enemies into friends. Now they would help the entire galaxy learn the same lesson. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the station, holding countless worlds with countless species. Some were friendly, some were dangerous, but all of them, Dr. Song knew, had the potential to become partners in the great adventure of exploring the universe together. In the garden below, children's laughter mixed with the calls of Earth animals and the sounds of alien creatures. It was the sound of a new future being born, one friendship at a time.